Actually, I'd like to add one item for an update on poplar trees around the town of High River. So I'd like that added as item 4.3. Not looking for any direct answers. We need to have a conversation about this. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that council adopt the agenda for the November 28th Committee of the Whole meeting as presented, adding item 4.3 poplar trees.
You have my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes. Ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that the Committee of the Whole adopt the minutes from the November 14th Committee of the Whole meeting as presented.
You got my motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Snow and ice control policy. Riley or Dreer? Who's doing it?
Good afternoon. You're going to get both of us today. Quick introduction. So today the purpose is just to kind of go over service levels, where some of the costs have gone, how they've changed over the years, and then listen to your feedback in terms of the direction, the policy, the service levels. To open up, just completing off the conversation from last council meeting is the PSA with regards to downtown service levels removal went out. The businesses got a prettied up version, which I believe you all have as well. Comms said, there's no way you can release that. It must be nicer. So they did a nice version for us, which we hand delivered to the businesses. And then one correction on my behalf from last meeting, I said Farm Boy was contracted on a per visit rate for downtown. Now their sites changed from site to site, but it was actually a per hour charge based on their equipment they were using that day. So it's a little different than what I said. So just that correction. And then with that, I will turn it over to Dreer to summarize our service levels.
Okay, so as everybody knows, good afternoon, everybody. As everybody knows, we are in contract this year with Summit Property Group. The contract itself is in sort of stages here. We have scopes of work A, section AA, B, and then C and D. And I'll just quickly go over what each scope of work is and the price change. We're doing this contract on a monthly basis versus how we did it in the previous years on a per occurrence basis or per call charge. It is my understanding that the previous vendor charged based on the number of hours and the piece of equipment that they're using. Summit, on the other hand, is awarded this contract for 3 years. Scope of work A includes downtown and the handicap parking spaces. And part of that contract on the weekends also includes the Charles Clark Center, Cultural Center, the Public Library, Boys and Girls Club. That is what's included only on the weekends. And that scope of work is $13,203. The subsection of scope A is also included in the RCMP package, which is side paths, their parking spot, and their pathways for $995 a month. And when I compared that to the previous vendor's contract, there's a significant saving there. Moving on to scope of work C, which is the Recplex. That includes the parking spaces there, the sidewalks and the entrances, along with the stairs to the curling rink for $1,630 a month. Scope of work D, and the last one, is Affordable Living Mundy Park, which includes the pathways, sidewalks, and if there's any accumulated snowpacks, they take care of that for us as well. Now, this is a monthly contract, so some of you might have noticed on the weekend, we've asked for their assistance to help break up the ice. at no additional cost, and that's just sort of a favor that they did for us, in conjunction with getting Shawnee in to remove the excess snow. Part of Summit's contract is also taking the snow once we pack it into those handicap stalls and take it out to the lagoons for $3,000. That is what the scope of work amendment in place this year, effective from November 1 to March 31st of 2023. And with that, I'm going to open the floor for any questions you may have regarding the actual contract itself.
Or any of our other service levels. I think they're all listed in the report.
Councillor Barton?
Thanks, Mayor. Just curiosity, why did they do it at no cost to us? Because it was 2 days of work for them to remove the snow off the roads.
I don't want this to be sort of taken as a precedent for future work. This is just me having a conversation with them saying that we haven't had any snow in the past maybe 2 weeks, just so that way I can give them something to do. And at the end of the day, they're still going to get paid for taking out that snow to the lagoons. So that's sort of, you could say, kind of a favor that they did for us.
So the only concern I have is I happened to be walking downtown that night when they were, I think it was Saturday night, was it? They were moving Friday and Saturday? So it would have been Friday night. And they were moving it with a trailer, right? Not the most efficient way of hauling snow. So I'm guessing we paid on an hourly basis for that? No? Per load?
That goes on per day, so whatever they can get out that day. Into the mic. So the reason why we did it that way, and I kind of figured that this question would come up, if we contracted Shawnee alone, that would have been probably close to $15,000 because they would have to use their grader and their snow blades to take out all that or crush all that snow from the downtown area and then take it out to the lagoons. Whereas using Summit to do that for us, they didn't charge us for the additional breakage. They only charged us to take it out to the lagoons, which is $3,000. Shawnee gets paid to use their heavy equipment to kind of scrape the ice and get it ready for these guys to use their side-by-sides and whatnot to put it into the back of their trailers and take it out. So they get paid per day. Now, we've contracted them for Saturday as well, and that's part of their contract anytime they take out snow to the lagoons.
So we're paying Shawnee, correct?
We're paying Shawnee, but we're not paying them a full amount. We're paying them about $1,200 just to get that grader in there. So $1,200 versus $15,000 to do this job.
Okay.
Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Just curiosity, why do we take it out to the lagoons? Do we not have property a lot closer than that, or there's regulations around it, I suppose, that it has to be blah, blah, blah?
We used to contract with developers, so we used to take it out to Montrose as an example. We got a lot of complaints with regards to vehicle traffic because the boxes on the trucks would bang late at night and whatnot, so it generated quite a few complaints. We also had to do pre and post testing of the land with regards to salts. And if there was ever a time when salts, it never did happen, but if the salt levels got too high, then would be on the hook for remediation. And the developers, they did it, but they weren't very favorable to it. So, I mean, we were getting to the point where it was going to be an issue or we were going to pay significant costs. The lagoons we own, it's easy. And we still, I think we test for chlorides still? I'm not sure. I take that back. Not sure on that one. But we own it. We operate it.
I was thinking more of
So
the
it's
lands
easy.
just south on 12th here. You know, that
Those are
land.
full.
Full.
Oh, sorry, that land.
Just a little closer, save you some time, that's all. No big deal.
That has come up and has challenges because the ice doesn't melt by the time, potentially might not melt by the time flood season comes around and may impact water flows because we were using the Clark land once. the neighbors in the area had a lot of concerns with that, also with the chlorides and the proximity to water wells. So we discontinued that practice as well.
Any other questions? Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So I'm curious, and please help me connect the dots. The amended pricing then that we're seeing, is that, am I on the right agenda? Yes. There's an amended pricing proposal, is there, further on?
Yes, so it is mentioned in the report, and I noticed it wasn't actually an attachment to the report, but it ended up in the agenda, so I'm not quite sure how that happened, but we do touch on it in the report in terms of the increased scope. So this is removing the windrows and piling it up at the end. So this is the additional cost to push that snow up at the end of the parking.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna perk on that for a sec, thanks.
Sorry, did I not end?
Well, I'm just curious as to why we're seeing an amendment with it's a fairly significant increase, is it not? From the original to this amendment?
Correct.
Yeah. And so was that not part of their anticipation when they quoted
No,
us?
no, it is a change of scope. So their original, and this is a lot of the learnings that we saw from last year in terms of how the snow was being handled and windrowed and where it went. That generated a lot of the complaints. So through the summer, we did take that feedback and we went back to Summit and we said, what would it look like if we piled it up? We also added in cleanup for some of the handicap parking stalls to make sure they were better accessible. So that was part of the amendment as well. So they now pile it up as per, there's a drawing in the package that shows basically we're sacrificing these parking stalls to pile up snow, and that's to get rid of the windrows, which should address a lot of the concerns we heard last season, as well as some of the concerns that we're seeing municipalities, well, Nelson as the example, being challenged from a snow removal and a windrow perspective. They actually got sued on it, so.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, to add to that, if you look at 2022 for scope of work A, it was 7828, and for 2022 to 2023 and onwards, it's 13,000. That's because there's an addition to the Charles Clark Cultural Center, the library, and the Boys and Girls Club for the weekends. That's also the addition to that. No?
No, that was always in there.
That was always, okay. My apologies.
Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my question is also reflecting the increasing costs. I feel like council made the decision we thought was in the best interest, a cost savings, the company would offer the services, et cetera. So now we're seeing price increases, whether it's in a scope change or not. How are the services being provided comparable to what we had with our previous contractor? I will say, in a different role as a downtown business owner, I won't say. It's not good. The end of the day, the services that are being received are substandard to what I've known since having a business since 2017 here in the town of High River. And now we're seeing cost increase. And the cost savings, I think, was a big influence on going with this new company, giving them a foot in the door in good faith. Yeah, they're going to do a good job, but that's not really what I'm seeing. And now we're seeing a cost increase. So what are we looking at for services here? And are they providing what we expect? Or are we going to pay more now so they do? That's how this reads to me.
Juror can correct me if I'm wrong. He has the actually the invoices from the last season from our previous provider with us today. The cost is still significantly cheaper than what we were paying before. It was, we can get into the numbers if we want. Like I said, Juror has them. I guess, so it's still significantly cheaper. And I guess I got a question back to you, Councillor Walsh, is from our perspective, we thought we were meeting a similar kind of standard. So I guess the question is, what are we missing out on that we need to address? Because I guess that feedback is important so we can make sure we are meeting the expectations.
Well, I think that the quality of work that was provided by the previous company is by far greater than what we're seeing now.
Can you give me an example?
Well, just the aesthetics of when the sidewalks are cleared, they're cleared previously. Now, there's often piles of snow under the benches or not done around the tree wells, not completely cleared. I pay particular attention to that because, you know, people coming in to see me are usually already injured, and watching them slip around on the ice and whatnot, and pushing the snow out into the street rather than up to the end. It just the visual of what was and what is two different things. Now, accepting, I know that it's a new company because I was sitting here when we talked about, like last budget, but the rest of the people don't know any of those things. They just know that we ditched the local guy, went with somebody else and saved some money, and now we have substandard service. That's my feeling of it. Now,
Brenda,
I'm telling you from a business owner, right?
Fair enough. And they do take a different methodology to their removals. But on the flip side, it may be harder to get all of that snow out, but on the other hand, we haven't had a single rock complaint with the new vendor. And we got a couple per season with the old vendor. So, I mean, there's some trade-offs on this as well.
The other thing that I'd like to say, Brenda, is if we paid this vendor based on per call occurrences and the number of manpower they bring, I think we'd probably see the same level of service to your expectation. The other thing that we need to take into consideration is we got hit pretty hard very early on this year. Mm-hmm. When I look at last year's December, which was equivalent to what we got this November, the previous vendor's bill just for downtown is close to $35,000, whereas the entire contract that we have with Summit is $17,369, right? From the past, post the last meeting that we had here, I reached out to Summit, and they've agreed to, for example, a continuous snow event, and I think that's kind of where you're alluding to, is clearing out the continuous snow event. There was a discussion amongst the panel here, and the takeaway from that was for me to reach out to Summit, and the agreement was if they come back, they do it by 8 o'clock, they have everything cleared. On a continuous snow event, we can contract them back for 60% of the cost that their previous vendor was charging us. And I'll be upfront, it's $1,200 per visit if we contract them out, or we can get 2 people on downtown for 8 hours for $1,200. So we choose the service level that we want that day. Either I say, you know what, you guys stay downtown for 8 hours, post 8 o'clock all the way up to 4 o'clock when businesses are open, around that time on a continuous snow event for $1,200, or you guys come in at, let's just say noon, do one more pass to full clean for $1,200. And I think this is really on us for not defining and clearing out the expectations. So we can't really point fingers at Summit, not to defend them, but me being the new guy on the block and not knowing what the previous vendor did last year or didn't do last year, I just take things for face value. We assess it properly this time around.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is you've implemented an extra step in managing the service provider, in overseeing how they're performing and calling them back for more when needed.
If needed on a continuous snow event, that's correct. They were struggling with manpower, but they did hire 2 more personnel. They are fully staffed now and ready for any major storms that we may have. So
Okay.
I'm anticipating that we will see, or you will be able to see a pretty good service level comparable, if not better, to what we had last year.
And while I agree, we have had a notable amount of snow recently. I think we've seen as much or more in September too, in past years. So something that kind of happens every year at the risk of being rather sarcastic.
So I think a lot of this was discussed. I think you were in Turkey, weren't you? when we discussed this, and because it became really hard for us, Brenda, to kind of narrow down what exactly works. So what we decided at the end of the day, because the reality is the snow clearing downtown in front of your business is a luxury. There's no question. We don't do it for any other business in town. So what we kind of decided to make it easy so that everybody understood the game is that Summit would come in and have it all clear by 8 o'clock. If it continues to snow, your responsibility to clear out in front of your business. Just like it is with any other snow clearing contract in town. If I hire a private guy, if I'm running Sobeys and I get Joe Eldridge to come over, Joe's not sitting there all day, every day, making sure every inch of snow is gone, right? So that's what we kind of landed on, was just cleared by 8 o'clock. During the day, it's the business's responsibility or their choice whether they clear in front of their building or not. And then the next day, it'll be cleared again. So you're welcome to leave it till 8 o'clock if you want. But I think most of us like to keep the fronts of our businesses cleared out. So that's kind of where, just to keep it, otherwise there's so much, who says this is, should they come now? There's only been
Right.
half an inch, so do we pay for half an inch?
Yep. I understand
That's
it's
a
that,
hurt.
and I got that part of all of this, and I don't wait for, I do clear my own sidewalk and
Yeah.
that of my neighbors. But I think what I'm getting at is when they are there in the designated time to provide this service, the services provided are not great, looking only at, I know this company's being contracted to provide these services, the end result that I see, and yes, I realize it's a real luxury, I don't question that for a second. So as a taxpayer or as a council member, what they're providing and what was provided on this big, beautiful street I am fortunate to have my business on is not the same.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
my
fair.
point. And I am totally fine to clear my own sidewalk all the way out to the road and the road so that people can get from, to the sidewalk.
Councillor Barton?
Thanks, Mayor. Because I think you guys took this out on Friday, wasn't it, or something like that? So Friday night, Friday late in the afternoon, I ended up going down to 4th and having my hair cut, and I had 3 people lambaste me that were from businesses from that area about just the content, and I get it, right? And I was defending it, but I think what would be really valuable is actually to go back now, if you've taken the time to actually take this letter to them on a personal note, now go get their feedback, right? Because one of the businesses said, we have been so accustomed for years to having this all cleared in the way it was previous, to now they have to start to man, she wasn't one of them that came there, but at the coffee shop, the Colossies, she does not have people to clear snow, right? Because there's only probably 2 to 3 people at tops there, and they're always busy, so they're not there to clear the snow. But I think we should give them that feedback, like this is where we're coming from council, but they also need to have an opportunity to vent. I told them, go to report of concern, but I don't know, it's just, I was kind of a little taken back by 3 people hitting me all at once about the same thing, so worth looking into.
But you're gonna take their you're gonna take their feedback back, and they want us to do all their snow clearing for them. We're not gonna do that. So somebody has to get off their ass at the business and go out and clear their snow if they want it done that way. Period. I know who you're talking about, and I know I get the same feedback from her, but
So actually, one of them happened to be also from Highwood Center, right in front of Highwood Medical Health Center.
Yeah.
There's a handicap stall there.
Yep.
And it's in bad shape. It was until that night when they cleared it, right? It was it's really windrowed in front of there.
Yeah.
And a lot of seniors stop there to get dropped off. There's actually 2 people I was told, and I've asked for their names just so that I can verify, but there's 2 people for sure in the downtown core that have fallen and slipped based on snow and ice buildup. I don't know, we just need to be aware of it.
Unpreventable, though. 100% unpreventable in Canada to never have anybody fall and slip on snow.
No, I get it, but
What
I'm
about-
just,
like-
I'm just bringing a concern based on the feedback that I received.
I understand, but what do you think the solution is to that, Counselor?
don't
If you were to bring a solution to it, what would that?
I don't know what that solution is. That's why it's important to have feedback, right? Because then they also feel like they're being heard and also can be part of the solution. Because we just basically turn the taps off on them. Like previously, it was a continual snowfall clearing. It's
Yeah.
along kind of what Brenda was saying. I don't think the level of service is the same.
It's not.
Yeah. So that's what we need to address or look at. That's all I'm saying.
I think this thing's confusing. I think this thing's confusing as to who's doing what. And which isn't uncommon with the way Coms puts things together. I think it needs to be a lot more simpler and bold and printed. The town will take care of snow clearing, and it'll be done to 8 o'clock. For the rest of the day, it is the business's responsibility to take care of that themselves. Like, we can do what Colossi's wants us to do. It's money. This is money. Like, we can, for this area that's on the map, like, you can just up the tax on that area. So the rest of the taxpayers in High River aren't funding it. You just tax all those businesses a little extra if you want all day, every day snow clearing. I can do it. It's just money. But I don't,
Then let's just take the snow removal away, period.
well, you could.
Right?
You could.
Why are we funding it?
We're funding it because downtown High River is extremely important to us, and we want to do our part. You know, we made the sidewalks bigger and everything else, so it's pedestrian walkability and all these things. And because the downtown portion has the majority of the services this town requires, that's why we've always put a commitment to that area. But it's snow clearing, so it's just coin. Every time you turn around, like, you can provide that service if you want, at whatever level you want. It's just how much money are you prepared to put to it, and how much responsibility should be on the businesses themselves. Because like you say, if we do have the choice to not do it at all, the problem was what we saw previous to the changes downtown was that, you know, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 businesses actually cleared the snow, ever, at any time. So then you end up with clear, solid ice, clear, solid, you know, you end up with that kind of a mess. And that's where we kind of said, you know, let's just do the clearing of it, and it's always clear. People know when they come downtown that it's clear. That's where we went. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you. I'd just like to add that as a business owner, it's my responsibility, period, to keep the front of my business clear. Just like as a homeowner, it's your responsibility to clear your sidewalk. And maybe that's the message that needs to be put across, is that this is complementary. Like, this is something the town's doing to enhance the downtown core. It is still your responsibility to clear the snow, sweep the leaves. The town's not going to come and wash your windows. Like, the town doesn't owe the businesses all of these things, but that's what's happened. There's this expectation. Give an inch, they'll take a foot. I just dated myself. Anyways, my opinion is, and professionally, my business insurance, it's my responsibility. And if somebody slips and falls, that's terrible. I have slipped and fallen in front of a Tim Hortons, and I broke my elbow. There's no recourse. It's a slip and fall. It's unfortunate. It was painful, but it's not the town's fault. It's not the town's responsibility. I slipped and fell. I've done it several times since, right? It is our responsibility as business owners to maintain, but it needs to be put out to the general public that the services that are provided downtown it's a bonus, it truly is. My comments about the quality is simply because I see it front line. For your reference, my business is right on First Street. I have a lovely town-owned parking lot beside me, great, like all these things, it's wonderful. But it needs to be put out there that this is a great thing. You should be happy you have it. You're still required to, sweep your leaves, cover your snow.
Any other questions? That thing? Go ahead. So this has been delivered to everybody downtown? Oh, okay. Okay. The only reason why I say it's a little bit confusing is because, I don't know, I just think there's way too much for really what it is. Because we're going, when required, downtown snow removal takes place daily prior to 8 a.m. The town may consider supplementing this daily service during heavy continuous events. That alone kind of sets up a bit of an expectation there. Like, I'm trying to find where is it that it says during the day, it's the business's responsibility to clear the snow. I'm not seeing that spelled out anywhere. Help me out if I'm missing it. The good neighbor bylaw? Down into the good neighbor bylaw, sure, but I think we need to take that good neighbor bylaw and like whatever wording goes, like they're just reading this. Because it looks as though the downtown area is separate, that we're taking care of it. I need it spelled out that after 8 o'clock, it's your responsibility. So they know exactly, and then the crews will be back. It's continuous snowfall. Well, they'll be back by 4 in the morning to start again and have it cleared again by 8 o'clock.
We have it as a bulletin there in bold. Businesses are encouraged to clear snow that may build up during these events.
Whereabouts is that? Sorry.
3/4 down the page in the middle. Just above the good neighbor bylaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and I didn't even, yeah.
That's what I was going to
Yeah, I didn't even, sorry, I looked at the bullet, not the actual title. Because the title says that, but the actual description of what that means doesn't say that at all. It says much more that town's gonna take care of it, or consider to take care of it. They're just, I think there's just, that this is just too wordy for businesses to like clearly just read it and understand. And that we're clearing 8 o'clock, it'll be clear. From there on, it's your responsibility, to do it according to the good neighbor bylaw. And just keep it. Comms likes to type. They like to get too wordy with it, and it starts to put gray area and everything, right?
It wasn't all comms. The engineer may have been doing
Oh,
some editing
shit,
too.
Jesus Christ. Fuck, Forgot about Riley. Counselor Barton, every time. 10 years.
Thanks, thanks, Mayor.
13.
I agree that, no, you just made me forget my thought. Oh, how does bylaw really come into this? Like in terms of, I know we've got the snow policy and we've got good neighbor bylaw, but how can we actually, why aren't we utilizing that side of it to actually enforce it? Like you had commented, well, this business does it, this business doesn't, this one does. Can't we enforce it?
So the bylaw doesn't come into effect until 24 hours after the end of an event. So Summit will always be there before the bylaw comes into, from an enforcement perspective on clearing. Summit will always be there prior to that. Well, at least with downtown.
But
I
I
think
guess
it's more
we're,
of an information session for the residents that, you know, technically, the town's not even supposed to clear the snow until 24 hours post an event. It's more of a luxury that they get it done every time before 8 o'clock in the morning. Kind of
Absolutely.
how, what we're alluding to there, but not
Yeah.
fully saying that.
but I think that's kind of what something Craig said and something Brenda said is kind of, I think we're setting ourselves up even long-term for like, I would rather see something that says, okay, we're doing it this year and we're gonna do it next year, the following year, we're done. You're taking it on, right? Like, because this was born out of flood, right? The idea of it.
That's correct. It was actually supposed to be, I think, 5 years?
I don't know.
And then it was supposed to,
Yeah.
it was going to discontinue eventually.
Yeah.
So there was actually an end date on this. It came back to council, there was a conversation, and it was really about, you know, we've made the sidewalks bigger, we want to encourage that walkability, and we want to promote our downtown core, and there was a desire to continue that, to support that.
Yeah.
And that's why it continued.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the supportive thing is very, very important, and I agree with that. It needs to go back to, it is your responsibility to maintain the front of your business access, period. This is supportive and complimentary from the town, but because it snowed, like, it just, we're setting ourselves up in that, and the redesign of the downtown, it's beautiful, and yes, adding that service to these great wide sidewalks that everyone likes to talk to us about, this is good. But this is, less is more. It should simply say, it is your responsibility to clear the sidewalks, just as it is as a resident of High River. The town has gracious enough to offer this service, but it's not intended to keep your sidewalk clear because you're, you know, or like Craig said, you can pay some taxes because nobody else, I don't know of any other areas that offer this type of wonderful service.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you. I want to say, I actually really like this. The point of this was to educate the downtown people on their responsibility. I know it is a little wordy, but it's all there. And obviously, there was some people who did understand the meaning behind it because
Yeah.
they went to Councillor Barton on that. But yeah, report a concern or having somebody just explain exactly in layman's terms what it is, that it is your responsibility. I like it. I think, you know, we just continue educating them, which was the whole purpose of it, and I appreciate your work on it.
Thanks, Jenny. Counselor Nychuk, where are you going?
All good stuff. I mean, education is a hard thing because everybody receives information and processes it differently. So, good start. Maybe we just want to keep following up with more of these little leaflet things. I don't know. If we had electronic means of putting it out there would be good. Paper always, I don't know. We're just kind of getting away from paper. But anyway, I wanted to bring up Councillor Barton's point about getting rid of it, absolutely not. Would never support that, because we will not enforce a bylaw with our businesses. We will not have a bylaw officer writing tickets to people that don't clear their sidewalks. So we're gonna end up with a really shitty downtown in the winter, because some people are gonna be really diligent and some people are absolutely not going to be. Just like we see in our residential areas. So I just wanted to make that point. I can't see it happening. I think providing a minimum level of support through the winter is good. The downtown is the heart of our community, and when we have people come here, we want it to be in reasonably good shape. So I can't see us going down a road where we're gonna get rid of it.
Again, did we give you anything?
Is there any questions not related to downtown?
Well, I got one. Why wasn't there any trucks out yesterday? That roundabout on 12th was, like, I could not stay on it in four-wheel drive. Every vehicle, the tree was taken out, every vehicle going around. I was just curious, like, why wasn't Volker or us?
Yeah, we just had to wait to get Volker in there, and by the time they got in there, it seems like that's when most of the complaints were already made.
Yeah.
But that's under their responsibility. You know,
Right.
Center and 12 is Volker.
But
That's
on
who does it.
my question, Jareer, sorry, interrupting, but like, why didn't we have anybody out on us? Like, I know it's Sunday, but we just don't? Never have?
We have an on-call, and so if a complaint comes in, it goes to the on-call phone, and then they will investigate. And so it's, unless that phone gets a call, no one's looking.
What if there's a foot of snow on Sunday?
Well, then that person would be active. As soon as it starts snowing, they come in and they start looking.
Okay, but it was snowing, so.
Was it snowing then?
Well, it was snowing Sunday morning, yeah. I was trying to put Christmas stuff up. with
That's
my
something
kid.
that
It's
we have to
horrible.
take back as a takeaway to make sure that we actually physically have somebody here, and that's
Yeah,
a work in progress right now.
okay, thanks, Jareer.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're good. Thanks, guys, unless you got any,
Could I clarify?
please do, yeah. That's what I'm asking.
We're going to reach out back to Summit with regards to some of their, I guess, the finishing, to make sure they are cleaning around furniture and whatnot, to a little bit better standard now that they're fully crewed. And then I guess the second action is, we're going to redo comms, and it's something that's a little bit of a clearer, briefer format, and then reach back out and deliver that again. I would propose we circulate that like we did the PSA, and we can get that going here in the next couple weeks.
Okay,
So I have two actions, is what I'm hearing.
sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
And like Jenny makes a good point, like, for me, there's too many words, not enough pictures. That's just me. I like it just, this is it, and that's what you do. This is what we're doing, that's what you're doing. It's clear, you can't muddy it up, you can't do anything, so, you know, if there's another one that goes out, and obviously the communication piece is starting to educate is working, because otherwise Jamie wouldn't have got tied into, right? So they're at least reading it, and we're starting to get there, so. Yep.
Yeah, that was the main objective, is to educate everybody. I said the more is better, more information they have is better, so that
Yep.
way they can better understand, and there's no gray area in that wording that we do. As for you, Councillor Walsh, I hope that you can have a better experience next time, only because I don't think you've seen maybe the full extent of what they can provide. So maybe going forward, you might see better service, and I hope you do. Again, they are fully staffed now, and we have the opportunity to call them back if needed.
Thanks, Jareer. Thanks, Riley. Councillor Nychuk, Rimrock Biodigester discussion.
Yeah, I was up late trying to put something together and thought about it. Anyway, what this comes down to is I need to know council's temperature if council would support my activity in, well, let's rewind this a little bit. So the feedlot smell came up. We had a lot of people in here on a couple of occasions. Craig came and asked me if I was interested in digging into it farther. So I have been. I've received a lot of information. I have perspective on it now. Do I want to be the authority to feed you guys back and give you my opinion? I can do that, but I am not a scientist. I'm not a biodigester expert. I don't have a degree in feedlot management. I have none of that. So I can pass on information that I receive, just like I did in the recent past, and continue to feed you that stuff. My concern at this point is the facility that's being proposed in association with Rimrock Feeders is not something we want next to our community for a number of reasons. Some of those being environmental concerns, water, air, some of those being odor concerns, further accentuated odors from what already exists. There's a couple different digester formats, aerobic and anaerobic. Simply put, aerobic is a closed system, for lack of a better explanation, without getting really technical, which tends to contain smell. Anaerobic, they can't say definitively. In every case that I've read about, looked at, talked to people about, there's smell. There's more smell. So when we've been receiving information on this that it may, it could, it should diminish the smell that comes from there, I think it's a bunch of malarkey, quite honestly, from everything that I've read. Going back to when I was sitting where Jamie was sitting, and we had the Rimrock folks here talking to us, by no means do I want to stop that, well, it's not an agricultural operation. They call it agricultural, but it's commercial. It's a commercial business. They're not farmers. They're not ranchers. They're meat producers. They're just like Cargill. Cargill's not considered agricultural either. When they came here, I said publicly to everybody who was in here, I have no intent to close down Rimrock. That's not what I want to do. I want to find solutions. So we have that smell because of what they do. I do not want a multi-million-dollar facility plunked 5 kilometers outside of High River that is going to accentuate that and bring all kinds of environmental concerns to the community. At this point, AEP is still reviewing the application. Early spring is when they're supposed to make a decision. My intent to bring this today was to get everybody's temperature on what it was and ask of the possibility of starting to write letters in campaign of our position as a municipality that can't control or direct what goes on there, but we're going to feel the effects of it. Much like what Mayor Snodgrass and previous councillor Bruce Masterman worked tirelessly and effortlessly on the eastern slopes and coal, and we all know the result of that. That was entirely a lobbying initiative along with the hard work that they did. I mean, they spent hours talking to people, writing letters. It was, and I see this as much the same pathway because we have no direct control. So I wanted this put on the agenda today so I could start to channel more information through council to you guys. And then as you have that information, there's a couple of direct letters I would like right away that were written that would need council endorsement. But I think that first step is to have a little bit of discussion here and see where everybody's at. I mean, you can ask me questions. By no means do I want to sit here and be a public authority on it, which I'm not. There are some people out there talking on this issue that are stating a lot of things, and quite honestly, I don't think they're experts, and putting opinions into the public forum when you're not an expert on the topic is dangerous. So I can speak in grand contexts. Specifics, I can get you information that you can read and digest yourself and make your own opinions. But so today, it was more or less a little bit of a discussion to see where everybody was at, and then I can tell you about the 2 points of concern right now that I would like to address by letter from the municipality as our concern as a municipality, not Michael's concern, but as council representing the town of High River. There's a couple that I would like to bring up, but Mayor Snodgrass, if you want to start with, I don't know, opening the floor to some discussion, we can take it from there. As if I'm the only one that's riding this horse, I've got a lot more work to do to talk to you folks about why I'm on the horse and why I'm going that direction.
Thanks, Mike. I like where Councillor Nychuk's going with this, and going back to the coal thing, how previous council handled the coal thing, and this is what I would support doing with this item as well, is moving and having a Rimrock biodigester as a standing item on our council agendas. We did it with the coal updates every 2 weeks. Bruce and I would provide coal updates as to where we were at. And then if letters needed to be done, we would discuss it and authorize signing of letters, et cetera. So I'll actually be making a motion to amend the agenda to add the Rimrock biodigester into the regular meeting today as an advocacy position. And I support Mike. Mike's dug right into this. I support Mike just taking the, doesn't mean everybody else stays out of it. It's just that Mike's kind of the point person doing that. I can't do that all the time, every time. So Mike's kind of doing that right now. There's a few things that are a little bit iffy with what's going on with the AEP application that Mike and I are digging into that we need to deal with. But right now, does everybody support having it as a standing item and as an update on advocacy position? And does everybody support Councillor Nychuk being the designated lead on this file? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, and thank you, Michael, for jumping in like that, because it is really important. I mean, I know we've had them, Rimrock here, and we've talked about it, but I mean, straight answers from them seem to be not happening, and then you hear hearsay. So having somebody actually look into some of these things and have some clear direction, but advocacy for sure, 100%, I'm behind you and willing to help out wherever. Really, the benefit to our community is very little, if any, compared to the downside, right? Like, if odor can be such a big issue and it could get worse, I think we need to look into that, because I don't see any other benefit to our community other than that particular negative, which could, in the long run, be something really bad. But yeah, starting sooner rather than later is perfect. And I know that Chris sent us out a little something about some air quality stuff that I don't know much about, but I don't know if they have anything to do with each other. So that'd be interesting to hear more about that one.
So the craze piece that Chris just put out, it's more to do with the smell coming, the actual feedlot smell from Rimrock that they want to kind of be testing. It's give us some kind of baseline, right? Yeah, well, if the biodigester goes in, then this absolutely will give us a baseline as if there's any change. But they also, just with what we all know is an increased smell coming directly from the feedlot operation right now, that they want some data on that as to what is in the air, et cetera, correct? That's what they're...
And Riley, jump in if I'm incorrect. Yeah, and that's part of it. Overall, it's looking at overall air quality as well, particulates in the air, pollens, dirt particles, smoke particles. And we've been working hard with them to try and ensure that we do have some air quality monitoring on the I guess it's the H2S kind of monitoring aspect of things. So that's kind of the intent of the overall project, and you know, they'll be there for a 12-month period monitoring and developing. It's a shame that we don't have a baseline from pre to really measure against. So we're going to be measuring the baseline post of rimrock, and that's going to be, that'll give us a sense.
Because you can't really say, okay, this is specifically because of the odor, like rimrock odor, for sure. And I get that. But would this be any help? Because it is like a whole year project to help with this particular advocacy at this point, or not really?
I think it could. I think it'll give us certainly information on air quality in general, especially up in the Northwest. It's staying there for the full 12 months. It's not moving around town. And I think it'll give us a really good picture on air quality in the Northwest throughout the seasons. So I think that's, I think it'll give us a good picture on what that air quality actually is, what are the risks associated with it, what are the health indexes that we need to be worried about.
Absolutely.
So I think, any information that we get from it is going to be important as it relates to our air shed. So I think it's really, really fundamental from that perspective, because we're seeing more impacts to our air sheds than ever before.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's great. And again, thanks, Michael. I'm with you 100%.
Thanks, Jenny. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you, Michael. I appreciate all of the information that you bring in. I don't think any of us anticipated being as knowledgeable of feedlot management as we all are now. With that being said, feedlot impact on our community is something that's been here for a long time. And yes, we need to stay on top of how that affects everything. But my feeling is very strong that a feedlot west of High River is one thing. An industrial type facility in our agricultural lands between here and the mountains that we just protected so ferociously is a huge, I'm behind you 150%, and anything I can do to support what you're learning and doing, I'm there all the way. And I don't think we need to push to shut the feedlot down, but under no circumstances should we stop and see that biodigester go in. It's just there's too many unknowns, and it is too close. We put everybody at risk by allowing that.
Thanks, Brenda. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. Thank you, Michael, for all your hard work so far. Councillor Nychuk. One of the things I think we have a due diligence to maybe figure out is a little bit more of an understanding. We don't all need to be biodigester experts, but I do think I'd like to understand more about what's involved and what the hazards are as a result of, what the offset is as a result of, what the intention is, because that too hasn't been made clear to any of us at this point. And we don't need to understand their business, but we do have to be able to speak to this properly. And so the only way we're going to do that is to get educated. So I would like to start maybe there in understanding what the proposal is, in understanding what the footprint is, understanding what the challenges are to our community, and then maybe we can become more effective in our advocacy, because I think that's what it's going to take. Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor. To Councillor Nychuk, absolutely, you have 100% of my support on this issue, and advocacy in our close neighborhood is very, very important. And Councillor Walsh's comments about industrial between us and the mountains, I just caution that it has a direct impact on High River. This thing is, the odor and all that stuff has a direct impact on High River, and for us to advocate against something like that we feel will be negative is a good thing. My question to CIO Prosser is about the study that's being done, carried out, the 12 months. My understanding is that equipment cannot measure odor. It can only measure contaminants. Is that correct? Or are they going to do some sort of paperwork saying on this day it smelled level 8 and that kind of thing? I mean, I'd like to know a little more about that as well.
That's some of the details we're working through with them still. It will measure the level of contamination within anything that causes odor is a particulate. So it will have some kind of measurement on those days of a higher particulate matter. It may not measure the exact scientific quality of what that is, but it'll give kind of an impression of what's taking place on that.
You're not going to make me go there, are you?
What's that?
Anything that has an odor has particulate?
No. So it should have some kind of degree of measure. We have been kind of having conversations about them measuring specifics on odor, but there's not great technology on specifics on specific odors. So I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a great understanding of what our air shed is under pressure from, and we'll get all 4 seasons, including the winter season, as a baseline. I wish it was before the feedlot was started back up, to be honest, so that we could really measure against what it was before.
I think it's important if they come up with some way, even just document on a scale of 1 to 10 what the odor was that day, because we hear comments that every day it stinks in High River. And some say it hardly ever stinks. So to accurately document that when there is an odor, I think is really important.
And I think they targeted us because of the conversations about odor. So. It was
We're on the
chose. I think we came to the top of their heap.
Oh, yeah. All the media that's been out there, these guys are like, beauty, what a great place to go drop our equipment to check it out. It's fantastic. I think it's great. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mayor. I support what you're doing, Michael. I do. I think it's a great advocacy piece, and we need to continue to push on it. The one thing I remember us, I think, briefly talking about is possibly having Tidewater come in to have a discussion with us. Was that not on our radar at one point? And I think it'd be something worthy of it, and I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but I think it's, because from what I've seen just the last few days, because there's a Facebook page now that just popped up on my radar just last couple days, and what's interesting is one of the components in that was how Tidewater and or the Rimrock Resort, whatever renewables call it, they don't want to do town hall meetings. They want to do one-on-one only.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just interesting.
Divide and conquer,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, Tidewater did not want to be the meetings or the delegations that I arranged with Rimrock to come to us. Tidewater did decline to come to that environment. They just won't do it. It may be something that we can get them here, but in an in-camera session of some kind, the problem is does that fit the definition of something that should be in camera with a municipal council, right? I got problems with doing that. You just want to come into, either come in and face the music or, but I'm going to bring a motion forward during the regular council meeting that puts the standing line item on our agendas, and also asks for Councillor Nychuk to be the lead on this file. I'm hearing support from everybody, so I think we're good to go there. I'm going to mention one thing, because it ticked me off in the High River Times this week with that letter to the editor that was there. And this was what Michael and I were kind of digging into all weekend to try to find out if one of us has lost our minds. Town of High River nor myself have ever given a support letter for this project, ever. But it's actually stated that we have in Tidewater's AEP submission. So we have to, we're digging. I'm currently waiting for an answer from my AEP guy to figure this out. And I've even got confirmation from Kendra at Rimrock that no, you guys never did. We were asked to, and I said, look, we can bring this, but I said, Kendra, I can't sign this without it coming to council for discussion. This goes to council before, and that was August of 2020. And then it never even came to council because it passed their deadline for submission. So, whether Tidewater just thought that we would get it to them one day, I don't know. But you don't put that in an application unless you got it in hand, because that's completely false. So I was a little ticked off with the people that wrote that editorial, but now I see directly where they got that information from, so I don't fault them whatsoever. but we'll get that cleared up in a couple of ways. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you. Just one last thing. I know that we don't, sit down with the members of the county, but is there any, don't laugh at me, I know. Is there any conversation at all with where they're at with it and the application processes? Somebody that I know in our community quoted Reeve Miller as saying, well, what else were we supposed to do with regards to the allowing the ground preparation for the proposed development? It's rather disturbing to hear that, but do we have any of the information, or are we privy to any of that what the communications are between Foothills County and the people with Rimrock and Tidewater? I thought that was a pretty silly thing to say, but.
Yeah, I don't get that one. So when I first heard about that, I went, oh, okay, well, I can kind of get that because we do it within the town of High River on residential development that, yes, you can proceed with groundwork and you can even build your foundation. You can get up to that point. Will allow you to get going because construction timelines in Canada are bloody tight. So we allow that before they get their DP or BP, but it's at their risk. If the DP doesn't go through, then you get to tear it all out at your expense, right? So it's at their risk to do that. And from what I hear, it's the same thing there, that they've given them enough, and it's a risk on Tidewater to do all that groundwork and everything, but they cannot physically build anything until they have all the real applications go through. But I don't know, that's something Mike can dig into a little bit more.
What about the $5 million grant that they received in support of this project? That's another thing that came up. Actually, I think that Kendra herself spoke to that.
Why don't we do this? There's a lot. We could spend another 2.5 hours here today going through all those line items. That's what Michael's going to work on, is all these. So if you got questions, send them over to Michael. He's getting more information and we'll go from there. I'll let Michael finish it off here.
Thanks, Craig. To touch on that point, yeah, they waived the development permit, meaning the county of Foothills. And I can forward you guys a link to that council meeting where they explained why they made that decision. Basically, they felt that the Municipal Governance Act overrid their ability to really have any effect with the development permit, that if the province approved the project, it didn't really matter if they approved the DP or not. I'm a bit challenged with that because I'll stand up to the provincial government if it's something I don't want in my community. I don't really care what they have to say. If the legislation is written in a way that says they have the upper hand, then I will lobby to change the legislation if it's something I don't feel is appropriate, or in this case, potentially harmful for the community. So I can forward you that where their council gave that explanation, how they came up with that. But leaving today, I guess I just want to say thank you for the support. Incredibly important for our community. We can continue to do the great things that we do, i.e., we just had a discussion about the downtown and snow removal and creating an environment like that in the heart of our community that we continually hear when people come to our community. What a beautiful place, what a great place to be, what fabulous little shops, what great people. And that's what drives me to do the things I do when I'm a councillor. And I don't want to be 85, 90, whatever, at the manor and sitting back and going, I didn't do something that I should have done back when I was in a chair where I had some influence. So thank you guys. I will, following this meeting tonight, I'll send you guys out an initial couple pieces of information. One will be the application with AEP. That is public knowledge. That isn't something I came by untowards. You can access that as just a general citizen in Alberta. So I'll forward that to you. I'll point out the section where they say that we provided support, just so you guys are aware of it. The letter supposedly of support is not contained within the application, so I don't know where that exists. I'll send you that one and a couple other little pieces just to start so that we can move forward together and build our knowledge and understanding. And I mean, at some point, this could turn entirely the other way, and they could prove to us that this is the best facility in the world. It's the right thing to do from an energy, from an environmental perspective. But right now, there's, we'll wait our way through it and see where it goes. I'm not really hopeful in that direction, but yeah, thank you. I'll send you guys some stuff and we can keep the conversation going, and I'll keep updating you, and I might knock on some of your doors for some things.
Thanks, Michael. 4.3, poplar trees in town. Obviously, there's a ton of these trees that are getting, well, they're bloody massive, and to me, they're starting to become a liability. And Bonnie Curry was here talking to everybody about the ones that are downtown in Pioneer Square there. They're really worried about the branches breaking off and taking somebody out. A number of years ago, we talked about taking all the poplar trees down on 12th Avenue, but that kind of just disappeared. This fall, we had a massive branch break off on 12th Avenue. Well, we had a couple. We had one that went to the north side of 12th that took out a truck. And then just a few months ago, we had another one that went directly onto 12th Avenue that blocked off all traffic and everything. But some friends of ours were not they watched it fall. They were just coming around the corner when that thing, they're 5 seconds earlier getting out of the house, and they take that thing in the windshield, right? Full family. And then just down the street on a friend's place, corner and 9th, and what would that be? I don't know, 9th and 10th, 9th and 11th. They've got big town-owned massive poplars in front of their place, and these big branches keep breaking off, and then the one went through the rear window of his car on Saturday, I guess that was. And Chris, you made a good point. These poplar trees, on their own accord, they're designed for these limbs to bust off so it doesn't take out the whole tree. So the limbs will snap off, but that's where the dangerous part is too, that these things are so friggin' big now. And the branches that are breaking off, when I went through Dan's back windshield, well, I don't like to go to the freaking extreme of incidents, but wouldn't be that uncommon that kids sitting in that back seat waiting for dad to come and head out. And, these trees are dangerous, and we can physically do something with them. It's just called a chainsaw. And you just knock the damn things down and get rid of them. And if we're tree huggers and we want to take care of all that, you plant a new tree that makes sense. But these suckers are getting real dangerous. So I do have a question. That whole thing because it was a big hairy-carry deal a number of years ago that these trees on 12th Avenue, they have to come down right now. There's no talking about it. And, we were all kind of freaking out as to what that would look like. But we gave you the green light to do it, and then nothing ever happened. So question on where that went, Riley.
I can't remember, to be honest. I'd have to go through the files. That one is beyond my memory.
So what can we do about these trees? Like I'm all in that once one starts falling apart, just done. Get it out of here. Cost of taking those trees down, yeah, it's a lot of money, but not with a lawsuit comparison.
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Can we just chop these damn things down?
we can.
Thanks. What'd you say? Was there a T at the end of that? It was just can, right?
It was can. There'd be a lot of zeros after that, but yes.
Yeah, okay, well, you're at the mic, so I know that. Councillor Walsh.
Thanks, sorry, I
mean
missed a
zeros with
meeting, so I
money.
had to talk lots today. Actually, in Okotoks a few years ago, wasn't it Poplars that they took out going up Veterans Way?
Yes.
Yeah, and
On
the
Milligan
community
as
was
well.
devastated. These big, beautiful trees, and they cleared them all out for that very reason.
Milligan as well. They
Yeah, it
actually,
is Milligan. Well, Veterans Way and then Milligan.
but Milligan, east of, they left actually a lot of the ones on Milligan because there's some rather large green spaces, and poplars are appropriate there. But east of Milligan, they were actually, east of 32nd along Milligan, they used to be right against the road. There's still some there, but they had been phasing out the bigger ones over a number of years. So I think they said 5 years or 10 years or something, and they phased them out. So we could look at some sort of phasing program as well if that was something council was interested in.
Yes, over a period of time, the worst ones, and then
Yeah,
replenishing.
so
That
it's
would be
not
less
as
shocking.
dramatic when we do come in. So we start
you.
planting and cutting kind of at the same time. And
Exactly. No, there's got to be a replacement program. We don't want to lose the trees, but, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Have we ever had any lawsuits? Was just one of my questions. Which is good. What would be a parameter around removal? Like I know you said if the limbs start falling off, does that mean that tree is ready? Like is there parameters around it or we just go gone or?
Any branch over 6 inches, done.
I mean, we have had 2 incidences. One went through my husband's vehicle window and one narrowly missed my daughter by inches, and it had to have been that big around. So I agree that there are some issues, but how do you mediate that, I guess? Or like you said,
that's a good point, because my understanding is there's nothing from a health perspective that's particularly wrong with the trees. So this is, I guess, you're asking the engineer arborist question, so bear with me. I think it's generally a size issue and to a certain degree weather. So if you catch, for example, snow at the wrong time of seasons, ends or some leaves, we are seeing this, or wind or whatnot. So my understanding though, this isn't like you see some with poplars when they get of age, they start rotting out in the middle and they go hollow. My understanding is that that's not the issue. These are just big trees.
That's right, and then that's what's the trigger point, right? And to me, it's human safety that we look at. Because if you just look at it from the arborist is gonna come along and say, no, the tree's healthy.
So maybe it's
That ain't good enough because the trees still bust limbs, right?
so it could be a function of size and proximity to
Yeah, like this
to
one
things.
downtown in Pioneer Square, it's gotta go, like there's too many.
could somebody
People-
recommend, like the business, that one particular lady with business downtown, could she make that recommendation that she would like it gone, or is that
Yeah, and
opening
she-
it up to?
And she already has, yeah.
No, I know, but there would be other people too. I'm just
for
asking,
sure.
like,
Yeah, but I think if there's a recommendation, it comes to council and we can have a look at it or get an assessment from, but I'm looking at 100% safety, not tree health. Councillor Kinghorn.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that's exactly what happened with 12th Avenue, if my memory serves me right, is that we did take out a number of them along 12th and replanted with some other species. I'm no expert on it, but I would encourage that we get Darlene to come back with some sort of a written report, hopefully before spring, with some idea of how many trees, what are we looking at. I think we have a tree inventory somewhere. I know we were working on that, so maybe we can use that tree inventory to give us an idea and sort of go after the high-risk ones like the Pioneer Square one. 12th, there's a few in there that are pretty bad, but some of the other problem areas. But even then, I had elm tree branches come down in my yard in that last big wind. I get what you're saying, Mayor, but I think we need to do it in sort of a staged out thing. To go out and chop down 100 trees before spring, I think is going to create a bit of a havoc. But I'd like to see some sort of a report and some sort of not just a report, a plan on replacement over the next 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I agree for the most part with you, Jamie, but there are a few that are, right now, they're dangerous. It might only be 2 or 3 that I know of. But They gotta go. And then, yes, not every one of them has to come down on Wednesday. Absolutely not, but there are a few that are, got some issues. Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. And further to that, I think the other piece is that there's a lot of folks who have a lot of ownership around those trees, whether they're theirs or not, and so, or investment in their presence. So I think if we do anything, though, I'd like to make sure that whatever we do is clearly communicated to the community, because I know that there's a lot of people who are going to be very upset at the loss of the trees. Granted, we'll plant new ones and, you know, it still won't
Correct.
be as nice. So I think that's just something that we need to make sure that we're mindful of.
Absolutely. Councillor Barton?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the one thing I just wanted to add is make sure we put George Lane Park or any other public places on the radar, because I was camping with family this summer and we had a similar instance where just some branches came down and it wasn't near us, but it was just in our area. So if we can add that to the list, that'd be awesome.
Thank you. Good, Riley, to get started?
Yes. Now, keep in mind, there is a lot of poplars in
Oh, I
town, so
know.
this isn't about getting rid of them. This is just finding and tackling high-risk ones. So
Correct.
ones in generally open areas won't be making the list.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is property, human safety. Open-ended question and answer. Anything from council? Nothing? Sweet. Meeting adjourned 2:25.